I never thought my own home would become my crime scene. The moment those handcuffs touched my wrists, my family was smiling. And I still remember the exact second my life stopped being normal. Welcome back to the channel, where every story reveals the dark truth behind trust, betrayal, and revenge. If you love intense real-life style crime stories, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to hear is not just a story. It's a warning. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, if your own family turned against you like this, would you fight back or walk away? Now listen carefully, because my story starts at the worst moment of my life. The police kicked open my bedroom door at exactly 1:47 a.m. I was standing barefoot on the cold wooden floor, still half asleep, when bright flashlights hit my face like a weapon. I blinked, confused, heart suddenly racing. "Don't move," one officer shouted. Within seconds, my entire room was turned upside down. My drawers were pulled out, papers scattered, furniture pushed aside like I was already guilty before a word was spoken. Then I saw it. A warrant. And the words that destroyed everything I knew. Arrest for estate fraud. My name is Penelope, I'm 32 years old. And in that moment I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an arrest. It was planned. I looked toward my bedroom door, expecting confusion, fear, maybe even support. But what I saw broke something inside me. My parents were standing in the hallway, arms crossed, smiling. Not shocked, not worried, smiling like they had been waiting for this exact moment. And next to them was my younger sister, holding her phone up high, recording everything. She was live. I could see the screen glow lighting her face as thousands, then hundreds of thousands of people started reacting in real time. Comments were flying. "Lock her up. Finally justice. Expose her more." And my sister? She was smiling while reading them out loud, like it was entertainment, like I wasn't their blood but their target. One officer grabbed my arm roughly. I didn't resist. Not because I was weak, but because I already understood something they didn't. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of theirs. The cold metal of the handcuffs tightened around my wrists as I was led out of my bedroom. Every step down the hallway felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. The flashing police lights outside my house turned everything into sharp blue and red shadows. Neighbors were already standing near their windows, watching silently. No one came forward. No one asked questions. Because in their eyes, I was already guilty. But what hurt most wasn't the police. It was the silence of my own home. My parents were still standing near the hallway, watching, not stopping it, not questioning it, just watching like this was something they had been waiting for a long time. My mother's expression wasn't fear. It was satisfaction. Like years of resentment had finally reached its peak. My father didn't even look away when I passed him. And my sister, she followed right behind us, still recording. "Guys, she's being taken away now," she said into her phone with excitement. "This is insane, look at her face." The comments on her live stream kept exploding. And she kept smiling wider. That's when something inside me stopped reacting. No tears. No panic. Just silence. Because panic is what they wanted from me. And I refused to give them that satisfaction. The officer pushed me into the back of the police car. The door slammed shut. And suddenly everything outside became distant. Through the window I saw my house one last time. The place I grew up in. The place I thought was safe. Now it looked like a crime scene. The car started moving. As the wheels turned, my mind didn't focus on fear. It focused on one thing only. Why? Why would my own family stand there like that? Why would they smile while I was being arrested? That question wasn't new to me. It just finally had a face. Because this didn't start tonight. It started months ago, in silence. First it was small things. Strange conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Documents disappearing from my desk. Strange calls I was never told about. And most importantly, the sudden change in how my family looked at me. Like I had become a problem they needed to remove. I remember one evening, sitting at the dining table, when my father said something that felt harmless at the time. "Some people forget their place when money gets involved." My sister laughed at that time. But now, I understood what that laughter meant. The police car turned at a corner. And I leaned back slowly, looking at my reflection in the glass. My face looked calm, but inside my mind had already started connecting pieces. This wasn't just an arrest. It was a setup, and someone in my own family had planned it carefully enough to make sure I had no escape. But they made one mistake. They believed I would break easily. They had no idea who I really was. The police car kept moving through the dark streets, but my mind had already left that moment. Because the real beginning of this nightmare wasn't my arrest. It was 3 months ago, the day everything in my family changed forever. I still remember walking into that downtown law office in Kansas City. The building looked too clean, too quiet, like it was hiding something underneath its polished walls. My parents were already there. And so was my younger sister, Fiona. But something was different that day. No greetings. No warmth. No normal family behavior. Just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. We all sat around a long mahogany table, pretending to be a normal grieving family. My grandfather had passed away 2 weeks earlier, and this was the official reading of his will. I remember my hands were cold. Not because of the room, but because of the way they were looking at me. Like I didn't belong there. The lawyer cleared his throat and opened the sealed document. Last will and testament. Every word after that changed the atmosphere in the room. Because when he reached the financial section, everything stopped. The full estate, including assets valued at approximately $5 million, is hereby transferred to Penelope. For a moment there was silence. But it wasn't shock. It was something darker. My mother didn't blink. My father leaned back slowly. And Fiona turned her head just slightly and smiled. Not a happy smile. A dangerous one. The lawyer continued reading, but I wasn't listening anymore. Because I could feel it. Something was shifting in the room. Like I had just been placed in the center of something I didn't understand yet. Then came the next clause. If the beneficiary is deemed legally or mentally unfit, control of the estate may be transferred through administrative review. That was the exact moment I saw it. My father looked at my mother. My mother looked at Fiona. And Fiona nodded. Just once. But that small movement felt like a plan being activated. The lawyer avoided my eyes completely. That's when I understood something I didn't want to believe. This wasn't a family meeting. It was a setup. They weren't surprised about the inheritance. They were angry I got it. And worse, they were already planning how to take it away. The moment I stood up to leave that office, I felt it clearly. I wasn't walking out of a family moment. I was walking out of a battlefield I didn't even know I had entered. And behind me they were already talking without saying a word. Planning. Calculating. Deciding. That was the day I stopped seeing my family as safe, and started seeing them as dangerous. The police car suddenly slowed down. I blinked back into the present. The handcuffs on my wrists suddenly felt heavier. Because now I knew something important. My arrest didn't start in that bedroom. It started the moment they realized I wouldn't give up that money easily. After that will reading, I couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. Something was wrong in my house. Not obvious. Not loud. But calculated. Like someone was watching my life from the edges of it. First it was small things. A drawer slightly open when I was sure I closed it. A document moved just a few centimeters. My laptop left in sleep mode when I always shut it down. Normal things, but not normal enough to ignore. So I did something they never expected. I started watching back. I installed hidden surveillance cameras across my living room, hallway, and office space. Not visible ones. Not obvious security tools. Small lenses. Silent observers. And then I waited. For days nothing happened. Until one afternoon. I was sitting in a crowded cafe drinking coffee when my phone vibrated. Motion detected. My heart didn't even jump at first. It just slowed down. I opened the live feed. And there she was. Fiona. My sister. Standing inside my house. Using a spare key. My spare key. She looked around first. Carefully, like she already knew she was doing something wrong but didn't care anymore. Then she moved straight to my office. No hesitation. No confusion. She went directly to my desk drawers. The ones where I kept personal files, financial documents, legal papers. She pulled them open and started searching aggressively. Not casually. Not curiously. But like she was hunting for something specific. Then she pulled out her phone. And started taking pictures. one after another. Documents, signatures, account details, everything. My breathing slowed as I watched it happen. But I didn't move. Because anger is useful, but only when controlled. She didn't know the camera was recording her every move. She didn't know she was already caught. And that was the first mistake she made. After a few minutes, she left the house like nothing happened, locking the door behind her, like she still owned the right to do that. I sat in that cafe for a long time after the video ended. People around me were laughing, talking, living normal lives. But my world had just shifted completely. Because now I had proof. Not suspicion. Not fear. Proof. But instead of calling the police immediately, I did something they didn't expect. I saved everything. Every file. Every recording. Every timestamp. Because I wasn't going to win this with panic. I was going to win it with patience. That night, I went back home and acted completely normal. I even made sure the drawers were slightly disturbed again, like nothing had changed. Like she was still safe. Like I didn't know. Because the best trap is the one the enemy thinks they already escaped. And somewhere deep inside me, I already knew. This wasn't just a break-in. This was the beginning of a planned arrest. And I was going to let them build it. After I confirmed Fiona had broken into my home, I didn't confront her. I didn't call my parents. I didn't even change the locks. Instead, I started building something far more dangerous. A controlled situation. Because I realized something very important. They weren't just trying to hurt me emotionally. They were building a legal case against me. And that meant one thing. They needed evidence. So I gave them exactly what they wanted. I created a carefully designed folder on my system, filled with financial documents that looked real. Offshore transfers, account summaries, suspicious transactions. Everything structured in a way that would trigger immediate suspicion if discovered. But none of it was real. It was bait. Then I printed selected pages and left them exactly where Fiona would expect them. On my office desk. Half visible. Easy to find. Too tempting to ignore. And I waited. It didn't take long. Within days, my family started acting differently. My mother stopped talking to me completely. My father began making indirect comments about trust issues and serious concerns. Fiona became more confident. Like she had already won something. I could feel it building. Pressure. A plan moving forward without my involvement. Then one evening, I overheard a conversation that confirmed everything. "They have enough now," my father said quietly. "We should proceed before she notices," Fiona replied. And my mother simply agreed. That was it. They had taken the bait. They believed they had enough proof to destroy me legally. And they went to the one person who made it possible. The lawyer. Marcus. The same man from the will reading. The same man who avoided my eyes that day. Now I understood why. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was part of it. Because within days everything accelerated. Official complaints were filed. Allegations of estate fraud were submitted. And a warrant request began processing. All based on the evidence they believed Fiona had discovered. But what they didn't know was that every step they were taking was being tracked. Recorded. Logged. I didn't stop them. I let them complete the process. Because the moment they submitted those documents to the authorities, they crossed a line they could never step back from. That night, I sat in my dark living room, watching the time tick closer to midnight. No lights. No noise. Just silence. And I knew what was coming. Police sirens. A forced entry. Handcuffs. A public arrest. Exactly what they wanted for me. But they didn't realize something crucial. They weren't sending me to jail. They were walking straight into my setup. And I was ready for them to believe they had won one last time. Because the moment they celebrated was the moment everything would collapse. The night everything collapsed arrived exactly as I expected. At 1:47 a.m., the silence outside my house shattered. A violent bang echoed through the hallway as the front door was forced open. Flashlights flooded my bedroom instantly. "Don't move." Officers rushed in, overturning furniture, scanning every corner like I was a threat they had been waiting to catch for months. One of them grabbed my arm. Rough. Controlled. Certain. "Penelope, you are under arrest for estate fraud," he shouted while reading the warrant like it was already proven truth. Behind him chaos. Drawers opened. Papers scattered. My room turned into a staged crime scene in seconds. But I didn't resist. I didn't argue. I simply stood still. Because I already knew what they didn't. This arrest was not the end. It was the trigger. I slowly held out my hands. And the cold metal cuffs closed around my wrists. That's when I heard it. From the hallway. Applause. My mother was standing there, smiling. My father next to her, arms crossed, satisfied. And Fiona. She was live streaming. Her phone raised high, capturing every angle of my humiliation. Guys, she's finally arrested, she said excitedly. This is what justice looks like. Over 1 million viewers watched in real time. Comments flooding the screen. Mocking. Celebrating. Destroying me. But I stayed calm. Because they were watching the wrong ending. I was escorted outside and placed into the police vehicle. As the door shut, I caught one last look at my family. They weren't sad. They were victorious. And that was their biggest mistake. Because victory built on lies never lasts. The booking center was cold, sterile, unforgiving. They took my belongings, entered my name, and processed me like any other criminal. Until the system froze. A red alert flashed across the screen. The officer leaned forward, confused, then pale. Federal Protected Identity detected. The room changed instantly. The atmosphere dropped. The noise stopped. And within minutes, the phone rang. The police chief was coming. When he arrived, he didn't speak at first. He just looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. And everything shifted. The cuffs came off immediately. And I was moved into a private interrogation room. Minutes later, the door slammed open. The chief walked in, breathing heavily, staring at me like I was no longer a suspect, but a problem he didn't understand. Who are you? He finally asked. I slowly placed my federal credentials on the table. No emotion, no fear, just truth. He picked them up, checked them, called verification, and waited. The silence stretched until the confirmation came through. His entire posture changed instantly. Because I wasn't just a civilian. I wasn't just a victim. I was a federal forensic auditor. And this wasn't an arrest. It was a controlled operation. I looked at him calmly. This case is now federal jurisdiction, I said. Then I added one final line. Everyone involved just walked themselves into a federal trap. Outside, the consequences had already begun. 5 unmarked vehicles surrounded my family's house. FBI agents stormed inside while Fiona's live stream was still running. Her smile vanished instantly. The broadcast cut mid-sentence. My parents were pulled from the living room as neighbors watched in shock. Marcus was arrested at his law office at the same time. Everything they built collapsed in real time. And for the first time that night, I felt silence that wasn't fear. It was justice. Months later, the courtroom delivered the final verdict. Prison sentences, confiscation, permanent disbarment, and complete exposure of the entire conspiracy. As the judge struck the gavel down, I didn't look at them. I didn't need to, because I had already moved on. When I stepped outside the courthouse, sunlight hit my face. And for the first time, I wasn't the person they tried to destroy. I was the one who ended it.